Hello, how is everyone today? Welcome back to another show with the Crafty Hook. Again, my name is Nona and I am the creator of the Crafty Hook. As stated today, we're going to start with our loom knitting tutorials. For those of you just getting started with loom knitting, I'm just going to teach you a basic wrap stitch. Today, some people call it a wrap stitch, some people call it an E-wrap. It's just a basic stitch to kind of get you started on the loom knitting. Those of you that have messaged me kind of wanting to know just how to loom knit, what you can do, different things like that, we're going to kind of do different videos. But today we're just going to teach you just the basic wrap stitch for today. So today, to do this project, I'm going to end up making a child hat, baby hat. And I decided to use my Sandwood loom, which is a 5/8 inch 32 peg loom. Now, those of you that never loom knitted, the 5/8 means the distance between each peg on your loom. You don't have to use this particular loom. You can use any loom that you want and any width, because this is just a basic stitch, so there's nothing, it's all going to work out the same no matter what loom you use. So this is, of course, a Sandwood loom, and I'll put all of the information in the video in the link below, as such as the loom I use, the yarns I use, and so on. Today I decided I had some leftover yarn. This is a go-go yarn, and it's like different colors of the gray, and then it's got a little bit of like a white in it. So I had some leftover from another hat that I had made, and I'm going to kind of show you how I go about making one. Now, I will show you this hat that I made is actually an adult version of this yarn. So this hat here is the same stitch we're doing today. We're going to create the folded brim, kind of go step by step, and then create the hat. So this is similar to what we're making today. The only difference is this is an adult size, and we're actually going to do a child size. So I kind of show you like the inside of the brim here and that. So we are going to create one of these in the same color, but a smaller size for a child. Okay, so the items I'm using, of course, is the Sandwood loom. I have my loom hook. Now these hooks, if you order on sandwoodloom.com, if you buy any one of their looms, you do get a hook that comes with every one I've ordered. I've gotten a hook. You can also buy them separately as well. Sandwoods are amazing looms, but like I said, you don't have to use a Sandwood. You can use any loom you want for this pattern. This hat here was actually done on a Sandwood. I believe it was a 60 peg loom on the adult one. Okay, so, and as far as the hooks, before I get too far ahead of myself, you can get any hook and use any hook that you have. If you go to like Hobby Lobby, Michael's, Joann's, things like that, and you buy the loom kits that they have, they usually come with a basic hook with those kits. And you can also go on Amazon.com. I can see if I can put a couple of links in the description of the different hooks that I have gotten, like on Amazon, things like that. And then, of course, the go-go yarn, you can get that pretty much anywhere. I think I bought it once at Walmart, Joann Fabrics, Michael's, anywhere like that. Amazon, you can actually, I believe, order some of this on Amazon. It is, I believe, this is a 5-weight yarn on this one that I'm using today as well. Okay, so let's get started on the hat. So I am using a Sandwood loom. It is a 5/8 by 32 pegs. Now, the 5/8, what that means is from one center of one peg to the center of the next peg is the distance in between each peg. We're going to go ahead and get started here. I have a leftover, this is go-go yarn, and it's got like the white, the brown, and the gray. And I'm just going to kind of go step by step and kind of show you how to form the hat. Okay, the first thing we're going to do, we're going to make our loom knot here. So you're going to take the yarn, you're going to wrap it around and tuck the yarn in through and pull it Now, a lot of the looms have a start peg usually around the front of the loom. I don't use that. You're more than welcome to use it if you feel more comfortable, but I just place mine right on the first peg. And I just tuck that remaining yarn in the back and I pull this out. Make sure it's not too tight because you're going to want to be able to work with that yarn. Okay, so I have it on the first peg and I just go behind and I wrap each peg all the way around. So do one wrap on each peg. Okay, just about got all the way around here. Okay, so now I'm back at my first peg, and I'm just going to do what I just did on the first row. I'm just going to keep wrapping all the way around, and as you can tell, I'm going to end up with 2 loops on each peg. So just keep on wrapping that around. Make sure there's 2 loops on each peg. And this is pretty much just a starting of looming for the beginners out there that had emailed me saying they're just getting into looming, and that this is just a basic stitch just to kind of get you started on a simple project, and then we will eventually work our way up. Okay, so I have all of my pegs wrapped. Pull my yarn out of the way here. Okay, so each peg has a wrap on each peg here, all the way around. So what I do is I go to my starting peg, I take that loop, and I flip it over the top, just like that. Each one around, just take that bottom loop, pull it up over the top. Now you can go in from the top and flip it over, or some people go underneath and, underneath and pull it over the top just like this. Whatever is easier for you. So just go ahead and go all the way around and pull the loop all the way over the top of the peg. And you'll end up with 1 loop on each peg. Just like that. And make sure that you hold on to that working yarn somehow in your hand. You don't have to pull it too tight, but you don't want the loops to come loose or come off your peg. Okay, I'm just about to the end of this row. Okay, 2 more here. Okay, I did my first row of my wrap. Now, some people call this a wrap. Some people call it an E-wrap. So it just, like I said, just a basic stitch. And I kind of push all of my loops down just a little bit so I have a little working space here. All the way around. I tucked my yarn in between here. Sorry about that. Okay, so I'm back at my starting peg here, and I'm just going to do the same thing. Just keep wrapping this like this around. You can do the whole thing and then flip your loops. You can do 1 peg at a time, however you feel more comfortable, but you're just going to keep wrapping and flip that bottom loop over the top of each peg. So as I wrap, we're going to do 20 rows of wrap so that we can form the brim on the hat. I'm going to pause the video, do my 20 rows, and I'll come back and we'll go with the next step. Okay, so I went ahead and I did all my rows. I wrapped the 20 rows to form my brim of the hat. Now before I go any further, I forgot to mention this particular one that I am doing is for an infant or a small child. So if you're doing like an adult hat, I usually do about sometimes I do a 2-inch brim, sometimes I do a 4-inch brim. So depending on how wide you want your brim of your hat, you may need to do more than just 20 rows. So I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that. Okay, so I have my working yarn pulled out to the front of the loom. I'm gonna flip all of this upside down, kind of out of the loom, just like that. So this is kind of what the inside of the hat looks like. This is the outside. This is what it should look like. Okay, so pulling all of this up here, what you're going to do is you're going to want to find the area where you did your first stitch on your loom. You should have the tail there to kind of guide you. This was the first peg that we knitted. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a flipped brim. I'm going to take that first loop and I'm going to place it back on that first peg, just like that. Then you're going to go around that edge and you're going to place each loop back over each of the pegs all the way around. And there's 2 ways of doing this. I like to do it with my hand and not the hook, but you can actually take your hook and if you grab that loop, you can just take the tat with the hook and place it over your peg if it's easier for you. But I just kind of prefer doing it with my fingers and hands because that way I'm not tugging or shedding the yarn at all. So just go ahead and go all the way around with the edge of that loop and place each one over the peg just like that. Okay, and still working our way around the hat here. Almost got all the pegs. And it's pretty easy to kind of find that first loop. All you do is just go around the edge, you got that first loop, and then just bring it over. And then I always make sure that for starting yarn, the strand of the starting yarn, I always just kind of flip inside to kind of get it out of my way. Got one more here. Okay, so I have my working yarn pulled out in front. I've got all of my pegs wrapped where I've got the 2 wraps again on each peg. So I'm just going to start at that beginning peg and do the same thing. Now you want to hold on to your working yarn because you don't want that loop to be too loose, and you just take that and you flip over just like you would a knit. Just flip each one of those right over that peg. Now once you get a few of them, you can actually let go of that working yarn because it's snugged in there. So I just go by each peg and flip each one of these over that top knit. Now always make sure that when you flip that top one over that you don't end up flipping that, or that bottom, when you flip the bottom loop over the top, make sure you're not pulling on that top one because you want that one to remain on the peg. Otherwise, you'll cause it to unravel. And the way I do that is I kind of keep one of my fingers back behind the peg and kind of hold on to that yarn as I'm pulling each one of the loops over. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish this here and then we'll go on to the next step. Okay, I'm back to my beginning peg here. Got my working yarn in the front, got that other strand tucked away there in the back. Just kind of move all my pegs down all the way around here. Not too far, depending on what loom we're all working with. So as you can see, I've kind of formed my brim of my hat, and it's a double layer. So I like it that way because it just gives a little extra warmth over the ears. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to work on the top part of the hat now. And all you're going to do is just grab that yarn and then start your wraps again. Just start wrapping all of your pegs all the way around, and just start working like you did with the brim. You're going to work those pegs. You're going to take that bottom loop and flip it on over, just like we did on the brim. Grab and flip, grab and flip. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do my 20 more rows. You want to do 20 more rows for the top of the hat. If you're doing an adult hat or you're working on a bigger loom, I usually go about 40 on the rounds. Do 40 rounds, usually, but between 40 and 50 on an adult hat, depending on how tall you want the hat on the top of the head. Normally I do 20 for a child, and I do about 40 to 45 for an adult, to kind of get a nice top part of your hat going. So I'm going to go ahead, finish my rounds, and I will jump back with you here in just a moment. Okay, so I finished the top part of my hat. I got the 20 rows done. Here's the brim, and then from here I did 20 rows on the infant hat that I'm doing. So as I stated, if you're doing like a bigger loom, for like an adult hat, you want to do at least 40 rows or more, depending on who you're making the hat for, because you want to make sure that, you know, it's long enough to cover the ears and the head also. So, okay, so what I was talking about on the hat, this is an adult hat that I had made on a bigger loom. I did about a 3 to 4 inch brim here. Now, when you want to do, the bigger the loom, or excuse me, the bigger the brim that you want, so like if you want a 2-inch brim, you want to knit 4 inches around, because you're going to flip it. So that's what's going to cause that 2-inch brim there. And then so on and so on. So 4-inch brim, you want to do enough, you want to measure it, making sure it's like 8 inches before you flip the brim. And then I did, I believe, 45 of the rounds for this part of the adult hat, and then added the puff on the top. So this is exactly the same pattern that I'm working with on this loom today. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and show you how to do a cast off here. So we're gonna go ahead and start the process and show you how to cast your hat off. So what I do is I take my yarn and I wrap my yarn about 1.5 to 2 times around the outside of the loom. Cut off my yarn. I unwrap it back to the starting peg where I started. You're going to lay your yarn kind of across like this to the next peg. Starting with the next peg, I go in to the top loop, grab the yarn, and pull it up through that loop. And I do that to each peg. So in the loop, grab that yarn, pull it up, pull it all the way through. You can also use a yarn needle, like a sewing needle, and you can take the needle like under and just thread it through, but this is kind of how I do it, especially on the Sinwood looms, for the simple fact they have the lip there. Okay, so I just go all the way around and just make sure that I've got that thread threaded through each one of those loops on every peg. Now, if you start to feel like it's getting a little tight, you can actually go back and remove some of the ones that you've already stitched into. Just make sure not to loosen any of the ones you haven't gotten to yet. So I'm going to go ahead and loosen those, and then just keep working all the way around. Pull that yarn under every single loop on every peg. So go ahead and work all of your pegs, and I'm going to pause the video, and now I will be right back. Okay, so I'm down to my last 2 pegs. Just finishing these off here. Pull it under, pull through, and then the last one here. Okay, and then I'm going to pull off my last few knits here. Pull it out of my loom. Okay, so we casted off our hat, and what I do next is I flip the hat inside out, just like this. Pull my working yarn through. Okay. Then what you do is you slowly take that yarn, the working yarn, and just pull it all the way till you kind of get it to close up as tight as you can. Try not to pull it too tight, because depending on the yarn you're working, we don't want it to break. Okay, I've got my yarn needle. Okay, once you actually pull it tight, I just take my needle and I kind of go back through some of the loops and just work some of the yarn underneath, kind of hide some of that yarn there. Pull it tight. And then I just kind of go under a loop on one side, back up on a loop right in the center. Pull that through. And I always just kind of do a simple little knot at the top, just to make sure that it's nice and snug. Now you can also put a pom-pom on the top, like the hat, the adult hat I did here. You can kind of put a nice pom-pom. You know, this is like a fox fur, but you could do like a yarn pom-pom, anything that you'd like, or you could just do it without. I'm actually making this one without today because I'm going to be putting it on a doll. So, okay, so we have that nice and snug. Cut off that remaining yarn as close as you can. And then also, I take my working yarn, or yarn that we started with, the tail that we left. I take that and I also kind of sew it in under the loops a little as well. So just kind of go in around that top of that brim. Just a few stitches there like that. Kind of tuck that yarn in. And then, whoops, I just clip that off as close as I can, kind of give it a little tug to hide it away, flip it back right side out, and as you see, nice little closure there. Nice little closure, and now you just made your first loom hat for those of you that are just beginning. But yeah, that's kind of a really cute little infant hat. So you got so many different things that you can actually do. I made a child hat and an adult hat. So go ahead and play around with that stitch. Kind of get used to that stitch. And we'll be doing more videos as I go along on the channel. Kind of show you like a purl stitch, different things like that. I'm going to start with the basics first off, and then kind of work my way up. And then maybe like, kind of like I did the crochet videos, do a stitch at a time, 2 or 3 stitches, and then we'll throw it into like a pattern. So I hope you all enjoyed the video today. If you did, definitely please give me those thumbs up. Hit that like button. That helps me out on my channel. If you're new, welcome. And if you enjoyed the video, definitely hit the subscribe button down here. And subscribe to the channel. I'd be glad to have you follow us along on our journey. Thank you all for stopping by today. You all have a wonderful day. We'll see you tomorrow.